It feels to me like there's a bit of a downer mood right now in the fan base. Not everyone, but a decent chunk of the fan base are down after the result against Bournemouth yesterday. So in this video, I'm going to tell you 5 things and 5 reasons why you should be positive about what we saw yesterday against Bournemouth. Welcome to the 5 things we learned. Good morning, good evening, and good night. I hope you guys are well. Welcome to the 5 things we learned about Bournemouth 1, Nottingham Forest 1. Coming up, I'm going to tell you why we should be optimistic rather than pessimistic. If you're enjoying the content, please don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe to Forest Fan TV if you are new. And don't forget, if you want your beautifully licensed official Forest style merchandise, just like my water bottle here, which I'm going to need for this video, with some happy clappy juice just to get us through this all. Check out the link for FOCO. Use code FFTV10 for 10% off all your items at checkout. Okay, let's jump into this and let's kick it off with reason number 1 to be extremely optimistic. That's Murillo. This player is ridiculously good. Really young, really good. And I just see so many likenesses and traits in him to certain really good centre-backs, the likes of Virgil van Dijk. You see the likes of, I don't know, Maldini. Okay, maybe I'm going too far on him at the moment. But what a player he is. He's calm on the ball. He's composed. He's a complete brick and a complete unit. There's nothing he doesn't seem to be able to do in defence, apart from his aerial presence, people would say. But this is the point I want to make about him today. I thought yesterday and against Arsenal, even in the air, he looked completely composed. And that is a good sign. Why? Because it shows he's developing, and he's developing fast. And we've just got to enjoy it, because honestly, this is probably the negative on this. How long are we going to have him for? Because he's being scouted out. Match of the day yesterday. Bloody Danny Murphy picked him out as a player. We've seen Jamie Redknapp do it after Crystal Palace a few weeks ago. And the more they hype him, the more other teams are going to be interested in him. So as nice as it was to see that there was a 10-second slot of analysis on Match of the Day yesterday for Nottingham Forest, for me, I'd rather they just don't bother and don't talk about Murillo. In fact, talk about him being rubbish. That would make my day. Because will we be able to hold on to him after this summer? And that is my big worry about him. If he continues on the trajectory he started on, then the sky is the limit for the young man. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. You know, we've seen plenty of times where a player has started off hot, even at Nottingham Forest, and then the hype comes from the media, and then they fade away. I just don't feel that's going to be the case with Murillo. I just see him and I look at him and I think he's going from strength to strength. So be positive about Murillo right now. It's a huge, huge plus point for Nottingham Forest. Let me ask you guys this. If the worst were to happen and Forest sold him in the summer, what do you think his transfer value will be come the end of the season, let alone what it is now? Let me know in the comments down below. And let's stick on the theme of defenders, because we were the ones who told you about how good Murillo was going to be when Forest first signed him. And I also told you about Omobamidele. I liked this player and I thought this was an amazing signing for Nottingham Forest. And he's clearly the future. We said a couple of months ago, Murillo and Omobamidele will probably be the future pairing for Nottingham Forest if they are still with us. And even I didn't expect it to be accelerated so quickly as to look at it now and think, man, they look good. Both of them together. Seems to have stricken a partnership up that's really working. And the other key thing to it is the balance. What do I mean by this? We've seen Murillo and Niakate play extremely well against, say, Newcastle when we beat them 3-1. But Niakate is not naturally a right-sided centre-back. He's a left-sided centre-back as well. Omar Bamadeli is a right-sided centre-back, and it just creates that nice balance. And they're both quick. They're both, for me, what I like positionally. They are very, very astute and very aware of where they should be. Now, I do think Murillo is ahead of Omar Bamadeli. Of course, he's going to be. He's played more matches than him. He understands Nuno's system maybe a little better. But the fact that Omar Bamadeli took his chance, takes his debut against Blackpool, and within, 15-20 minutes, he's already scored his first goal for Nottingham Forest. But he's not in the team to score goals. What he's in the team to do is play that composed centre-back. Lovely play. And he's fast. And I love a defender who has pace. Now, he's got a lot to learn. There's no two ways about it. But what we have with him and with Murillo is youth that are hungry. Well, they're not youth anymore, but you get what I mean. That are hungry. And if you're a hungry player in football, it's going to take you really far because you're more determined. You're more eager. You're more motivated to prove yourself and force your way into a team. And I'm going to go as far as to say, I think they need to stay as our pairing until they give a reason for it not to happen. And you guys know I love Niakate. And Niakate, for me, is a leader. He's one of the first names on the team sheet normally. But I can't say I can find anything right now to fault either of these two young centre-backs. And to me, it just makes more sense to not break a partnership that's working. What do you guys think? Would you bring Niakate in? Would some of you bring Bolly in once he's back from international duty? Or like me, do you think this partnership needs to be given time to flourish and just see where it leads to? I really do think we are onto something. And I think we just got to ride it out and see what happens and see it develop and grow. So I'm saying even stick with these two for now until we have a reason to have to drop one of them. What do you think? Now, stepping away from centre-backs, because I could talk about those two all day, and I'm sure Stoney's very pleased. There was a feature there on Omar Bamadeli. Let's talk about the actual game. And I've seen a lot yesterday that this felt like Cooper Ball all over again. And I think probably that led to some of the, not depression is too strong a word, but the feeling of being down a bit on the game. And I've got to say, having slept on it and reflected on it, the game was ugly. There's no two ways about that. It was really scrappy. But I think people are forgetting just how good Bournemouth are. And that pains me to say. But I have softened to Bournemouth this season. I did say on the first episode of Beat the Drop this season that I think Bournemouth had the best transfer window. I'm extremely impressed, or was then and still am, with the manager they brought in, who I've been scouting. I would have taken him at Forest myself in the summer because I love his style and his philosophy. And Bournemouth, as you can see, now that that philosophy has been established, have been able to progress high up the table and really get some points going. I think they got like 23 points in their last 12 games, nearly averaging 2 points a match. That's European form. That's not relegation form. Now, will it last all season? Well, who cares? They're not our team. But the point I'm making here is that Bournemouth are an extremely hard team to beat. I think they hadn't lost in like 7 games at the Vitality Stadium or Dean's Court or whatever the hell it's called now. And for Forest to go there and play this ugly game, let's not beat around the bush about it. But there are things there that people need to remember that we weren't seeing under previous management. Forest, as I've got down here below, 55% possession away from home. That is night and day in comparison to what we were getting under Cooper against any team away from home. It didn't matter if it was a big six or someone threatened by relegation or someone in a mid-table battle. Forest were always low on possession, sometimes in the 30s, maybe if we were lucky in the 40s. So the style and the philosophy is definitely changing, but it is a long way from being complete for Nuno. And I've heard a few people say, yeah, well, so what? Last season we went there and drew 1-1. What's changed? Is anything different? Forest got the same result. Well, people are forgetting last season's Bournemouth, and not this season's Bournemouth. When Forest met them at their ground last year, If I remember rightly, Bournemouth had lost 5 games in a row, and a long strolled in Forest and gave them their first points for a while, and then Bournemouth went and lost their next game anyway. This is a night and day team we came up against in comparison to last year. So let's not undermine it. Possession away from home looking good. Chances created looking a lot better. And goals being scored are improving. And this is still without a full team for Nuno. And that's going to take us on to my next point. And my next point is about one man and one man in particular. And I'm being serious when I say this. Sangare is the missing piece. Once Sangare is back, you're going to see a real change in the way Nottingham Forest play. I do think yesterday, if I was being critical, I felt at times Forest were overrun in the midfield because there was huge gaps in that middle third, in the middle of that middle third, where Bournemouth just had the freedom of the park. I thought Alex Scott, even though he didn't play well when he came on, just found himself in loads of space. I thought Christie dominated that midfield as well. But when Sangare's back, I am telling you guys, man, if you don't believe anything I say, believe and trust me on this. He will be that dominant piece of the chessboard or the jigsaw, whatever analogy you want to put him to. He is going to be the key one. I didn't think Yates was good yesterday, even whatever it says, he doesn't know nothing about football. But once he's back in and you got Dominguez next to him, I like the sound of that pairing, or even a Danilo. You put those two together, you will get dominance in that midfield. And he is the key right now for me. Einar will be important when he comes back. I don't think as important as Sangare. But there was a Sangare-sized massive missing hole in yesterday's performance. And I genuinely believe if he was in there, we would be fine. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, look, he's been rubbish so far this season. He hasn't come to his potential. That's because he hasn't had a run yet. That's because he's been stop-start, international breaks he's gone to. Then he comes back, picks up an injury. Then he goes on AFCON and all this. It's been stop-start. I've said before, it's been very, very much like Mangala last season at Nottingham Forest. And look how many people are crying because he's left and crypto. So trust me on Sangare. And I'm not saying when he comes back against West Ham, he's going to just hit the ground running. Give him a couple of games and he will be the player that I've promised you guys. I hope. But this is the missing piece. Once he's in there, once we've got someone who can control that midfield, release the attacking players that we have, Forest are going to be okay. Do you believe me? Let me know in the comments down below. Let's move on to my final point. And this is on, the new players, and in particular, Gio Reyna. Now, what we are being told is that Gio Reyna in training has been sensational. There's 2 players that we've heard throughout this season that have just been ridiculously good and hit the ground running at training. I'm not saying all the rest haven't, but the ones that stand out is probably the right phrase. And that's been Murillo and Gio Reyna. Gio Reyna, I think, will force his way into the first team very, very quickly. If not by our next game at Newcastle, then definitely against West Ham. I do expect him to play in that Newcastle game, especially as he can't play in the cup game this midweek. But be positive about Reyna. Everything I've said to you in our scouting reports, in our videos on him, we are hearing the same things about him on the training pitch as well. And that's a huge positive. He didn't have much time yesterday to impose himself, but obviously he got 10 minutes. What are you going to do in that? But trust me, this guy is a player and he will really, hopefully, impress all of you. There, I'm putting my neck out on the line. Don't say jinxery. Don't say I've jinxed him or anything like that. Because I'm usually right with these players, whether you like to admit it or not. And Gio Reyna is going to be one hell of a talent. So there you go, guys. 5 things to try and lift your spirits, lift your mood. Maybe I've depressed you further. Who knows? Let me know in the comments down below. If you've enjoyed the video, please don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe to Forest Fan TV if you are new. If you haven't checked Grumpy Old Reds out from last night, go check it. I'll leave the link for you in the end screen. And we'll have a transfer video. Yes, a transfer video coming up for you later on. Thank you for watching. We'll see you then. Come on, you Reds.